Hello everybody. I am back again. Um and wanted to briefly give my thoughts on detachment. It is a very broad and vast topic to even cover. I won't even try to for the sake of the length of the video and um to, you know, kind of break it down to where it's more digestible, right? Um, but I guess I will just start for now mainly off of my personal thoughts and experiences on detachment. Um, so I'll try to compress the topic or my thoughts verbally as little as I can, and if maybe in the future I might talk a little bit more about it. But and I'm pretty sure everyone at this point had a has heard of detachment, let alone um, have experience with it with other people, with themselves. It's and everything with that. Um, Give me 1 second. I'm gonna drink some water because excuse me. Sorry about that. um, so yeah, it's yeah, detachment for me personally, detachment has always been something that's in the back of my mind ever since I can remember, even. Um, Never even really thought about the word until I've had my own personal encounters and experiences and just realization, if anything. It's something, first and foremost, you have to at least acknowledge you even um, you know, are experiencing or but if anything also sorry for clearing my throat, my goodness. Um, but yeah, if anything, it's it's such a hard thing to talk about because people have their subjective definitions about it, and it's something that you could go over again and again, and it may just not fully click, or it's something that's very hard to practice and grasp, in my opinion. Um, but I'll just say with detachment, um, that comes in all forms, first and foremost. For example, um, I know three main big aspects in life in terms of detachment is, or where people struggle with, I have noticed is um, with outcomes on success, um, and money. And I mean success in a general sense. It could be any type of success. But yeah, success, money as a materialistic form of it, and um, relationships. Those are the three main, like, main ones in my opinion. I feel like that's all separate too from yourself. Yourself, uh, yourself as in your view, your subjective view and perspective of yourself, like self-worth and everything. But that all goes hand in hand. But yes, again with detachment, it's so it's hard because you sometimes think you got it you got it down, and you had this realization and self-reflected on that and say, okay, yes, I just need to fully detach to, um, and at least to me, detachment, I've learned at this point, is is like, again, it, like I said, and you've probably heard so many people talk about this, it is not really just about not caring. I know that's probably the easiest way to describe it as, but in all seriousness, I've learned that's what I thought at least too. It was just simply becoming cold and not caring and just being very stubborn, in my opinion. I've always had trouble with that. I've always had this black and white thinking and all or nothing, um, both ends, extreme ends, thinking, that sort of thing. But I realize, it is hard, especially for someone like me to realize and change that. Um, I've slowly, really consciously been shifting my perspective on that. Even if it's gradual and it takes time, at least I've taken that step to move in that direction. It doesn't just happen overnight, of course, as much as you want it to, but detachment really is the answer in a lot of things in life. I feel like wherever you go, it doesn't matter how big, small, what aspect, I feel like, you know, uh, detachment will, as cliche as it sounds, it will save you just in general. It will save you emotionally, spiritually, even physically. Um, but yeah, no, detachment though is very like, you know, once again, it's not just about like, okay, yeah, you just don't care. No one else is important. It's not about being like that or being selfish. It's really, again, what I've learned. This is just a subjective, not professional advice whatsoever. But I feel like from everything that I've gathered, detachment is really just not being so obsessed and focused on the outcome and what is out of your control, right? And that you could discuss a lot about how that looks and what routes to take with that, but um, you know, because I found myself sadly like obsessing and being so and clinging on for dear life onto circumstances, people, situations, um, life in general. Like there's so many things in life, materialistic or not, that I cling on to, but then that makes me spiral into, um, you know, the opposite of detachment, which is, attachment, but which is not good, obviously, in my opinion. You know, um, I feel the need to, you know, cling on to that stuff because then, I feel like regardless if it's for feeling more worthy or something, or feeling whole and everything, and happy, but that's really not reality in my opinion. Reality is, you know, if you want to adapt and just flow with life, detachment, you just you gotta detach, you know? And once again, that doesn't just mean like, you just don't care at all about anything, anyone, um, you know, but still do what you can do, control what you can control. But also, when something doesn't go your way, when someone doesn't act or think like you do, and not, and your expectations don't come true, expectations to me are like wishes. You can control external circumstances or external, um, situations out there. Anything that's around you, it's, all that is unpredictable, and um, you can't control it. You just never know. You don't have that power. That everything outside of what you do, um, you don't have power over, and that is just life. That is reality. And I've always struggled to accept that. Um, let alone just let everything go. Um, but yeah, like you just need to you know, if something doesn't go the way you want it to go, and you expect something to go one way, or expect someone to be who you want to be, um, yes, that's just simply not the case. That is not, it's just simply not possible. You can say certain things, you can do things for people, you can, whatever it is. And this is the other thing too with detachment I've realized, and some people may or may not know. I'm not assuming here, but just because you do something for someone, just because you go out of your way for people, um, just because you do whatever nice thing you think you are doing for the greater good, or just being a kind, generous person overall, regardless of what it is. It could be, giving your loved ones um, gifts, giving um, money, donating to charity, just and just saying really kind words and being there for someone, however that looks, does not necessarily mean you will get that in return. There is absolutely no guarantee what you do will be reciprocated, um, regardless of who it is. And that is something, you know, you just need to accept, you know. Um, and again, it's, I'm not saying any of this is just like easy to get through, or just like, um, um, maintain, or like, just, there's so much more to it, of course, but I feel like, again, we focus so much on just outcomes, and we always worry about, you've heard this before, worry about the future, regretting or thinking too much about the past, right? I've always struggled with this, and I still do. But I feel like once you are able to grasp, or acknowledge, grasp, and just practice, it's like a practice. The more you do something, you know, gradually over time, at some point, it will become easier and you will master it, it's not going to be perfect, but you will get there. And so in terms of detachment, you know if you practice this mindset, from what I've learned and seen, um you know it's like rewiring your brain. You just, you find it hard to accept things, and you want the outcomes in your life to be perfect. You're always chasing that thing, but again, it's just, you're chasing something that's not guaranteed, right? You're chasing something that has a possibility. So even, but that's where we get clouded with our, with our detachment. And when that happens, we just lose sight of a lot of other things. And so detachment, again, is almost like taking a step back and realizing, like, regardless of what happens, you will be okay. Regardless of how external circumstances, be it a person, thing, place, situations, how that treats you in life, Like, you will be okay, you know? If no one is here for you, you know, you got yourself, you know? You will get through it, right? You know, and you know, I feel like as soon as you this is just my overall takeaway from this my overall takeaway from what I've learned so far in my journey in detachment. Once again, it's a broad term, but just leave it at um, my final thoughts on it. Again, the more you cling on to things, the more you hold on, grip them, and are so terrified of letting go, you know, the more everything and everyone has power over you. And, you know, with detachment, as soon as you, yes, as soon as you detach, let go, just take a breath, and just let everything kind of unfold itself, right? You know, don't stress or worry too much about things, you know, you cannot say or take action on, you know, just things you cannot control, basically. The more you just be in that mindset or immerse yourself into that mindset and perspective, you know, I feel like even if things still don't go well, however you define that is, and um, you know, and happiness is a whole other thing, and I'll probably cover that later on at some point. But I really just want to focus more on the detachment part of this whole you know oh man, sorry, I just realized I know you can't see that, but it's like my meant to like close out my background here. Um, so I anyways, but yeah, sorry about that. I just wanted to make sure things were closed out. But yeah, overall, that is just my personal thoughts and opinions on detachment. I feel like I'm a bit more aware and conscious of it now than ever before. You know, sometimes I've been always just been in denial and am blocking everything anyone has to say about it and not trying to just at least giving it a try, you know, at least self-improving in that regard. So yeah, well, I hope you guys enjoyed my brief spiel on detachment. If you want to hear more on this topic or my thoughts on it, or if you want to leave thoughts, your thoughts in the comments down below, or have a conversation with others on here as well, feel free to. This is again a safe space for people to kind of just share their thoughts and opinions. You know, always happy and intrigued to hear all that stuff from you guys. So, yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.